He was like the man behind the music man.
Welcome to Esclav Unmastered. In this episode, Side A of the Get Down, we go deep into the origin story of Yohann Puskey Ferrol. From a childhood surrounded by music to the roots of West Coast entertainment and eventually the spark that led to Esclav.
So yeah, where do I begin with this? So most people may know, some may not, but I was raised in a house of music. It has been a part of me, embedded in my DNA. My dad is a very humble guy who has played a few instruments in my lifetime. I watched my dad play the piano and play the guitar and even like train himself to learn the guitar left-handed because he had learned it right-handed and he's left-handed. So that was like remarkable to see somebody self-teach, themselves. Not knowing that I had that in me too, but my mom, my sister, they both sing. Music has always been something that was part of the household. Like your doors and your house, your windows, the floor. Things that put the house together. Music was part of that foundation.
But for him, having the music in his blood didn't mean the journey was easy.
I think my biggest hurdle at that time was not having the right equipment to, nurture the ideas and the material that was like kinetic energy in my head, or potential energy in my head, to put it forward. So I started playing drums in church at a very young age. I remember when I just started, I wasn't good at it at all. But I'm very persistent. I kind of loved the drums more than it loved me in the beginning, and I kind of like built myself until we had a mutual understanding, and then it ended up liking me more than I like it, that kind of vibe.
Then came a shift. From passion to purpose, the spark, tools, and curiosity.
In 2004, my brother passed away, and that same year, I got a computer powerful enough. Shout out to Carlos Charles for helping me build a computer. We actually built that computer basically from scratch. We had the pieces, the parts, the motherboard, and everything, and put it together to try and get something powerful enough to be able to process what we wanted to get done and kind of like build a quote unquote studio setup. So one of the first programs that I ever got my hands across was FL Studio, or Fruity Loops back in the day. And that's basically when things really started to shift. When it turned from, me having an idea and being like, what if XYZ, to, hey, I have an idea. Let me see how I can put this down. Now, I am a learner of learners. I've been told to be a teachable spirit. It's very easy for me to pick up on something. Sometimes I kind of like scare myself as to how quickly I would be able to figure out how something works. And I'm very determined in getting to the end result of any task. And I don't see problems as problems. I see them as hurdles that I would either jump over or crawl under, aka shortcut, to get to the other side. The whole point is to fulfill whatever the purpose is. So I got this program, kind of like had to figure it out on my own because I've been hearing about it. And then we have this thing amongst musicians where you don't go around asking another person, hey, how to do that now? Because everybody was like so selfish at the time. Still selfish now, but technology changed.
As his skills grew, so did the idea of building something bigger, something local, something bold.
Another person was like so instrumental in my musical life and my pursuit to music, and that was Wilson Matthew. That was like my best friend in school. He basically lived down the street from me, so to speak. That was one of the main people in my entire life that I could trust the most. Who jeopardize their business. Because we live in the West Coast, the idea was that to do something to represent where you're from, because that was the big thing. Every village, every town had a representation or a representative or a group or something, a person that would represent where they come from. So I remember when we actually made the idea to make West Coast entertainment a serious factor. With the help of Ilson, we actually got a chance to record in Ra's studio in Roseau next to the ministry. Everybody know where that place is. Everybody should know where that place is. And I remember, putting that together and learning at that point now how the business aspect of musical entertainment is, and what it entails, and the amount of things that you have to do, and the resources and the time and the money that has to be spent into putting it out, putting a CD out. Back in the day it was compact discs. That had a cost to it. Getting a design or a designer. Shout out to Yinka Labassiere for doing our album covers. That guy is a genius in his craft. So after the first album, long story short, I decided, based on how it was going, how sales were going, the representation that we had, the vibe that was going on with that. We actually had a dance group that my sister was part of as well. She also was vocalist on the album. When I saw and got the experience to actually work in a studio, in a studio setting, to do something that was my own and not work with somebody else on something of theirs. And I was like, man, that's the next step I want to go. I want to be able to produce at my leisure. I want to be able to have my own setup, my own equipment, and be able to house that, and instead of having to go buy somebody else or go to somebody else's studio or record on somebody else's facility, I want to be that facility. So that's where the business aspect of my mindset started to shift. So by the second album, everything was composed, written, mixed, mastered. Everything was done at my home, and I had to basically formulate something, and I have very strong parents who are all about structure. So I could not do that without setting it up legally. So I actually made a business entity, made a choice, and got my business name set up and basically registered the business and call it Original 5 Production Studio. 5 being 5 members in my family. And then I had a team of 5 people that was basically the back end of everything that we were doing at the time.
And the setup, let's just say, it wasn't exactly Abbey Roads.
When we did the studio, even if we did the business name and all that, things were still simple. All we had was a computer. I basically had a dynamic mic, and we took a vest, aka a wife beater, and we just wrapped it around a metal clothes hanger to make a circular pop filter, and used that with a makeshift stand to basically record the vocals. So it wasn't the best out there, but we actually made it work to the point where it was listenable and radio friendly. And then, it worked out.
That DIY hustle evolved. What started with a clothes hanger pop filter became something official.
I had to start updating myself, getting samples, putting samples together, putting things together, trying to get more material, more instruments, bootleg Fruity Loops with the famous key gens that could basically generate the code and unlock it so that you could get all the full features without having to pay anything. I remember those days very clearly, you know what I mean?
Then came the name, the bond, the crew, the moment where everything aligned.
So fast forward to the whole origin of Esclav itself, without being too much of a
once upon a time in a land far away
kind of person, but Esclav is a word that was used regularly amongst us. Basically was introduced moreover by Coco Killer himself. Everybody was Esclav. But how the entity itself began was, it actually began on a sad note where we had an aunt who passed away, and I went to the funeral. and only to meet Falco and I think Kerrill as well, and find out that, that aunt was a distant relative of both of us. We found out that we were distant relatives, and we kind of hit it off there. It had to be at a time like that where you would find out that who your family is, and I didn't even know I had family in Senjo. So I also learned that they had a group too, Jawbreakers, and then that was a saga by itself. You know what I mean? Because these guys were really talented. They had a hype, and they had a following too. And I'm like, yeah, it comes back down to organization and trying to be an entity and to understand the dynamics of groups and how that spearheads a certain level of growth, not only in yourself, but with the people that you assist. And if you want to function as an entity, as a business entity, as a studio, you have to get artists to basically bring that thing forth, because it's not a one man show. So that saga began like. Falco was one of the most serious people musically that I have come across with in my entire lifetime, to be totally honest. This guy had books of material, like literal books of material. He was a walking, living, breathing songbook. Like, this guy could just get up in the morning and basically make a song about every single step of his morning before he go to work or something like that. You know what I mean? And have it in a form where it actually was catchy. So I had a very sincere respect for that level of talent, and I was just like, yeah, now we have a producer, and an artist, because now I actually have somebody that can bless the material I have, and not only that, but have material himself to bring too, and we could put stuff together and actually make it on a different level, because his vibe was on a different level, and he's telling me my vibe is on a different level, and I'm like, yeah, those two levels can make a even bigger level. You check me? I introduced him to the Kinfield crew, and then he met Coco Killer personally, and that guy's another lyricist too. Like, this guy is so underrated, man. Things that would be difficult for other people to come by, I would just come to him naturally, and that was just so amazing, And then that code Esclav, we used to talk about it so much. It's in the Esclav, how everything working out in the Esclav. That kind of vibe, you know what I mean? And then when it came for the seriousness and actually putting a name together, it was like, it was a no-brainer that was the name that we were going to call the establishment when we came down to that. So the main part of everything, I would say, is the alignment, that we had together, the chemistry that we had together. Like, we knew what the assignment was. It was very easy for us to move forward because there was no like tension or back and forth in terms of what are we gonna do. We all had that same idea, and then the music would flow, and it's like, all right, I have a verse for that already, and then Killer have a verse for it already, Falco have a verse for that, and then we start putting stuff together, and then we met DJ Median, and then that boy had a voice, not had, has a voice. His voice, you heard. And we needed that. That was balance. We have a song named Balance, and people don't even understand how deep that song is. That was balance. We had somebody who had the hardcore dancehall vibe for that type of fusion. We had Falco, who could step into every single realm, from hip hop to R&B to jazz, and come right back to soca and bouyon. That was part of the fusion right there. Then you have myself, who just wanted to explore every single aspect of music and just put it together and make it intertwine like puzzle pieces perfectly fitting. You know what I mean? And let it be as unique as possible, but have its own identity. And everything just worked together because we had that alignment. But we needed the singing side of it. And that guy just came right at the perfect timing.
The first show was different, but the energy, unmistakable.
Our first gig, I can remember our first gig we had was in Senjo. in one of the halls in Central. I think it was one of the centers, and we had DJ Flip. Respect to DJ Flip. DJ Flip was basically spinning all our music for us, and we were playing back on that. And the way we were doing it, like we didn't have a band or anything like that, but the fact that we had somebody like DJ Flip, and DJ Flip was just coming up on that hype too. And he was mixing our music together and dropping it and, queuing it in. Like, we kind of like piggyback off of the whole dancehall kind of style where they would have that DJ and the hype man and all that kind of stuff. And we wanted to do that same kind of thing to kind of fill the void of not having an actual band at the time.
And not everyone understood what they were doing, at least not right away.
We had a little friction, like were we trying to fit in, or were we going to be like just another band, or were we going to be like the first of that kind of saga? And the uniqueness of the whole brand and what we were putting forward, and the fact that we were consistent about it, is one of the main reasons why it stood out.
Thankfully, some people did see the vision even before the crew fully did.
So we have people in our lifetime that we met that saw more in us than we actually saw in ourselves at the time. Because when you're just in the doing and you're in the action, trying to make things work, that you never really sit down and turn around and look back and watch the masterpieces that you have put together and sit down and let it soak in. Sometimes it takes a while for you to get to that point. But when you have constructive people with you and around you that are more experienced in the professionalism, the professional side of things, and what works and what doesn't work in music and music business, and they kind of like shake you and say, hey, do you know what you have? That kind of vibe. I can remember Lisa LeBlanc, God rest her soul. They saw something in us and they were like, we have a design for you. We're going to do an album cover for the first Esclav album. And I was like, yeah, that's crazy. And that was one of the issues that we had when we were trying to put the music back out there, that we couldn't even find the original content. And the author is no longer with us. That was the saddest part of the revamp, is just realizing that we had instrumental people in our lifetime, some of which passed away. And with no further ado, I cannot even continue without mentioning Ferdinand Frampton, because if it wasn't for her, a lot of the exposure that we got, we would never have gotten it. Like, she saw something in us that at the time, like I said earlier, that we didn't even see in ourselves yet. And she basically pushed for us, helped us with our proposal, and helped us with our business plan, and got us to get opportunities to sit at the same table with instrumental people who could actually help put us where we had to. And then we had to put our best foot forward. So all she was doing is saying, hey, I'm going to see how I can help you guys, but I cannot do it for you. You guys have to put that effort in if you want to get to where you need to go. You know what I mean? So God bless her soul. Like, we were very grateful for every single thing that she did for us.
And then came Curl in the Pack of 2007, a moment in Dominican history where Esclav pulled in deep.
Shout out to Tasha P, because that was another aspect of the Esclav maturity when we had to introduce the female side of things. That was all that came to the perfect balance, and give us that whole all-rounded vibe where we could play at different events, and as we were building and starting to put a band together and getting musicians, and meeting with guys like Brenton Vidal, that's another mastermind, and Melchour Joseph, masterminds. Like, we just started to get in contact with real masterminds. Eliza Jajak, that's another mastermind again on the bass. Like, we really started to get to meet and actually work with like seriously talented individuals. As we did the work to get musicians, Esclav became Esclav Band.
And what started as love for the sound evolved into something that was sustainable, something that was powerful.
For me, it was about finally having the tools to build. The spark that I needed, the fire that I needed to change that trajectory and give me the ability to start generating income in a real way. and then reinvest in that into the craft to give us more tools and a better computer and better equipment, taking advice from my father first and foremost, and a lot of other people who understood music business, understood the business world, understood the legal parts of it and all that stuff, to just to keep us in check, so that we're not just saying we're a band or a group, but we could actually go to the bank and say, hey, we're a business entity, we can open a business account and stuff like that. You know, we can make investments, we can do endorsements. And I wanted to like promote the studio as a brand too, so that the studio could continue to house everything that we could do and absorb all the costs that needed to be absorbed, all the costs that being incurred into getting that out there, because there's no way that you can escape that. Everything has a value to it. You know what I mean? That was basically it. Tools being equipment, tools being just being in the right space of mind and meeting the right people at the right time, who are also the human tools, the human resource to push that together. And the fact that we had that common interest made it the strongest part of it ever. You know what I mean? The perseverance, not wanting to give up, even when people were saying we you know, that's strange. It turned from strange to, hey, when is the next song coming out kind of thing. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Esclav never did music for doing music's sake. It animated them.
If you really look through the catalog, it tells the story better than anything that we could say. You see the becoming, you see how we evolve, and you see, you know, we were slaves to the sound. But in that whole devotion, we found the power. Power beyond what was holding us back.
I have the power!
The slave for music is not just a surface type of terminology, and it's not anything to do with actual slavery per se. It's just that the musical aspect of anybody's life, it captivates you and it takes over whatever feeling that it was intended to orchestrate, and you become a slave to it, but you're also enjoying being a slave to it. And that's the difference between that and the actual slavery sense, you know what I mean? And the word esclav itself means slave in Spanish, but our musical meaning was slave for music. And that to be so control over something that is so captivating that it actually empowers you more than it captivates you. And you are no longer captive once it is part of you. It actually strengthens you and makes you more free than you would ever imagine. You know, like an oxymoron.
From silence to sound, from pain to power, that was side A of Puskey's story. The foundation, the spark, and how Esclav was born. Next time, we'll take it deeper. Until then, keep it loud, keep it rooted, and keep it real.
You know it is already, Esclav. I probably talk for how long there? For real, you know? After all.